You should see Jurassic World Dominion in theaters now.
We'll do it.
It's not bad.
You can't make
It's
me.
not a bad movie. Alright, Jurassic World Dominion. I went into the theater expecting a disaster, and I was pleasantly surprised with probably what is the best of the Jurassic World trilogy. Every single character in this movie gets their proper ending. Alan and Ellie end up together at the end of it, which is a few people, probably a lot of people, really didn't need that, but probably just as many people did, and it was nice to see them end up together after all of these years. I mean, since 1993, a lot of fans were just like wanting them to get together, and they never did. So it's good to see them ending up, and I really loved watching them and their chemistry together on screen. I think it's fantastic. The original cast really was the best part of this movie, I want to say, especially Jeff Goldblum. He was my favorite part about this movie. Like, absolutely, he did a fantastic job. I loved seeing Ian Malcolm have a lot more screen time than he did in... I think he didn't even appear in Jurassic World. He was in Fallen Kingdom for a little bit, for like a minute. But seeing him have a big role in Dominion like this, it was a good moment for me. I really enjoy Jeff Goldblum and Sam Neill and Laura Dern too. I mean, like, the three of them together, whenever they're on screen together, is just great. It's just great. Best part of the movie, like I said. But it's not just them. I enjoyed watching Henry Wu redeem himself. B.D. Wong did great in this movie. I really did like his performance. He looked just like completely just washed with guilt from everything that's ever happened, and especially the locusts. But I'll tell you what I think about the locusts when I get to the negatives. But even the new characters from the Jurassic World trilogy, Owen, Claire, Maisie, there's a few others that I forget their names from Fallen Kingdom. I mean, every single one of them I enjoyed. And Owen and Claire, they're the best that they've been in this trilogy, in this movie. They are great together, and it was kind of redundant seeing them get together and then break up and then go back together again. Seeing them actually together as a couple, working together like this, it's great to see. It's great. I loved them together. I loved watching them try to raise Maisie. But neither of them are like properly equipped to raise a child, so they both like struggle in their own ways to do it. It's great. Most of every species that makes an appearance, new and old, gets their proper time in the spotlight. Dilophosaurus, my favorite dinosaur, gets a good amount of screen time in this movie, longer than it was around in the first Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that's nice. Gotta go.
And while I don't really like how Owen manhandles it in the movie, if you've seen it, you know exactly what I mean. I can say that it's good to see it back after literally not being in any other movie since the first one. I enjoyed the Dimetrodon scene in the cave. That was pretty cool. I loved the Therizinosaurus in this, and it's great because we haven't really gotten too many scenes in this franchise where the herbivores really do things. I mean, you have the stegosaurs in The Lost World fighting, like, swinging their tails at the humans and posing a threat. And then you have, like, the ankylosaurs in Jurassic World fighting back at the Indominus, but that doesn't really last long. I enjoyed seeing the Therizinosaurus actually kick ass in this movie. And if you're going to pick an herbivore to kick ass, it would make sense for it to be the scythe lizard. And while I did like seeing it kill the Giga, I'll have more to talk about that final fight scene when I get to the negatives. I've seen the movie twice now. I'm probably going to go see it a third time just because I have a lot of friends that want to see it. But there's a lot going on in this movie, so it's kind of hard to unpack and like everything. I've got a big notepad here in my hands that I just got a lot written down here, so. I enjoyed the scenes. Now, I'm trying to think, and I can only really imagine the one scene where the Rex tries to eat the dead deer, and the Giga shows up and, like, swats the Rex away. Now, while I don't really care for seeing the Rex get abused like that, especially the fan favorite one from the first movie, I do enjoy seeing these dinosaurs acting like animals, and it makes sense. The Rex comes in to scavenge a corpse, and the Giga comes in and fights it off, not to kill it Like, you'll usually see dinosaurs fighting in these movies, but instead just so it can get the deer. It doesn't pursue the Rex. The Rex takes a few bites to the snout and she walks away, and I liked that. Dodson in this movie. Now, there's a few people, this is why I made the Biosyn video too, which not a lot of people watched actually, but Dodson was a great part of this movie. I liked him a lot, mainly because he didn't seem like objectively evil. But like, there's just something about him. He was kind of like this squirrely, like, nerdy guy. He didn't seem... You know him as a character is, like, a bad guy. But it seems like in this movie, the portrayal of Dodson is a lot more tame. He just seems like this kind of, like, nerdy and awkward character that's just, like, doing his thing. And it's really funny because of how awkward he is. I don't know if it's because... I don't think it's because of the actor. I think it's how the character was written. But, like, people, like, coming up behind Dodson and him, like, jumping... He does it, like, 3 times in the movie, and it makes me laugh every single time. And, like, he'll be talking to characters, and, like, he'll just have, like, awkward pauses and stuff, and he'll, like, walk away without finishing his thoughts. And I just enjoyed whenever Dodson was on screen. It was great. And because he was a villain, but he wasn't hateable, in my opinion. Usually when there's, like, a human villain in these movies, you hate them. They're a really unlikable person. And while I think what Dodson was doing is obviously wrong, and that's what made him the human villain, he wasn't really an unlikable person. He was just kind of like an awkward dude that did a lot of questionable things. I think that's everything I liked about the movie. I can't really come up with anything else at the moment. Allow me to interject then. I am Sean from the future, and while editing this video, I just realized that I've missed an entire point that I wanted to make, and that is that this movie used a lot more practical effects than the previous Jurassic movies. Each Jurassic World movie used more and more animatronics. Jurassic World only used 1, to my knowledge, and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom used a handful. And this movie used a lot more. And I could pick them out when I watched them, but that's not necessarily a problem. I loved seeing the use of animatronics. I think the use of dinosaur animatronics is a staple of these Jurassic movies, and every single time. I mean, they looked great in this movie. They looked great, and I loved it. I loved every bit of it. I just wanted to mention that because I just realized that I had not recorded that when I was recording earlier. I loved the usage of animatronics in this movie. The Giga looked great. Beta looked great. The locusts looked great. They looked gross. Every practical creature in this movie looked fantastic. That's all. It's time for me to get into what I didn't like about the movie, which is just as big of a list as the things I did like about it. So let's just jump right into it. I didn't really care for the locust plot. Actually, it was my first watch of the movie, I didn't mind. Because I wasn't really thinking about it. Like, I was just, like, watching what was happening on screen. I'm like, okay, I'm following. Like, I can get behind this. It's not necessarily a bad story. But when you take a step back and look at the Jurassic World movies, it feels completely out of place. It makes sense in the way that it's what the plot needs for the original characters to meet the new ones. But at the same time, like, the movie should have been about what Fallen Kingdom set up. And that was dinosaurs being out. And not even just Fallen Kingdom. Battle of Big Rock, all the marketing materials set up the main plot of this movie being about dinosaurs being out in the world now, being out in civilization. And it feels like, and I don't know if this is just a result of how time has passed and nobody really cares anymore, but the dinosaurs being out in society is just like, okay, they're there now. Like, you have Quetzals nesting on New York skyscrapers, and I feel like the movie's main plot, it could have still involved Biosyn, but the movie's main plot should have been about dinosaurs living amongst humans, not about a bunch of bugs eating crops. You could have still tied in Biosyn with it, like Biosyn were taking dinosaurs that were living in that were loose. They were taking dinosaurs in and either weaponizing them, like so you could tie in the militarized dinosaur plots from the previous 2 movies, or just doing things with them and then having the main cast, the original characters, catch on to that. That would make so much more sense, like as a streamlined plot would go, rather than just having these locusts really come out of nowhere. Of course, it gives also a way for Wu to redeem himself in the end, but I just didn't really care for it looking at it as a story. Now, for Owen and Claire's plot, like the new character's plot, looking for Maisie and looking for Blue's baby, Beta, I liked it, really. I enjoyed watching it, because it was like a kidnapping movie with a bunch of dinosaurs, and while that's kind of ridiculous when we're thinking about Jurassic Park movies, I mean, we've kind of jumped ship here, and there's just a lot going on in this movie, so that aspect of it, I didn't really mind. This was really 2 movies put together, and one of them fit a lot better than the other one. I feel like The Locusts could have been its own movie, not the plot for Jurassic World Dominion. I didn't really like the Giga.
Let me introduce you to the new Joker. Ah!
I don't have any problems with its design, per se. I mean, I could have used a little bit less monstrous if Biosyn is all about breeding the purest form of the dinosaurs. It is kind of ridiculous that the Giga looks the way it does if they're going for how it was supposed to look prehistoric. But I'm not here to nitpick how accurate dinosaurs were to their real-life counterparts. I just didn't really like the Giga as a character. I would have a lot more preferred the Rex being the main big dinosaur. There's always a big theropod in every single one of these movies, and I would have rather it been the Rex than the Giga, because throughout the movie, they have to keep on introducing the Giga, which is, it gets annoying after a while, but every single time a new character meets the Giga, they're like, what is that? And someone has to explain to them that it's the Giganotosaurus, the biggest carnivore to ever live. They do it like 4 times in the movie, and like they're kind of hyping up the Giga to being more than it is to us. Because as Jurassic fans, it's never been mentioned in another movie. Sure, it's been around in video games and stuff, and we know that Giga DNA was in the Indominus, but they never really explicitly talk about the Giga ever. It's kind of like what they did for the Spinosaurus in Jurassic Park 3. The Spinosaurus just shows up out of nowhere and instantly kills off a Rex, and we're left being like, so is this what we're supposed to look up to now? I mean, like, I didn't like that. I would rather the Rex been in the spotlight as the big carnivore again. Because in the Jurassic World movies, it really hasn't done anything else other than save the day. And it's like, the Rex deserves more than that. I mean, I'm looking into it far more than I probably should, but in my opinion, that's what I think. And another thing, about these final fights in the Jurassic World movies, I'm kind of over it, to be honest. Jurassic World was pretty great. Probably the best in the trilogy. I really liked the finale with Blue and the Rex and the Mosasaurus versus the Indominus. It was really out there and kind of ridiculous, but it worked, I think. But it should kind of be a rare thing for these dinosaurs to be fighting each other to the death and having these big grand final battles. I was alright with Jurassic Worlds. Like, I actually enjoyed it. Then Fallen Kingdom came around and the exact same thing happened. And I'm not talking about the Rex versus the Carnotaurus. I'm mainly talking about the Indominus, the Indoraptor versus Blue. And then, of course, the Therizinosaurus and the Rex versus the Giga. I just feel like these movies are relying on the same formula of there being a big finale fight at the end of each movie. And, I mean, it's not as special if it happens every single time. Like, these aren't kaiju movies. You don't need to have dinosaurs fighting to the death at the finale of every single movie. Going back to my point about the Rex not really getting enough respect. This is the Rex from the original movie. The biggest Rex, I think, that we've seen in the franchise. Like, size-wise. And she's never won a fight by herself, unless you count the Carno, but that doesn't really count. Versus the Indominus. she got completely slapped around, which makes sense because the Indominus, she was outmatched there until she got the help with one Velociraptor. Blue, the one Velociraptor was able to turn the tide on the fight. Like, whatever, we're not talking about Jurassic World here. But then again, I feel like the Rex could have been, I mean, she's had fighting experience at this point, and she gets taken down in less than 30 seconds. It's, again, like, it's like the Spino versus Rex fight from Jurassic Park 3. Rexy gets taken down in under 30 seconds by the Giga, and again is almost brought to the brink of death and is saved by another dinosaur. I mean, it went from Rexy saving the day for the humans to Rexy being saved by other dinosaurs. It should have been, if it were going to have a final fight at all, it should have been just between the Rex and the Giga. And if you were going to take the Giga out, then you don't need a final fight. If we're going back to actual critiques about the movie and not just be nitpicking with my own personal opinions, I think a lot, well, not a lot, but some of the dialogue was a little iffy. Now, I really did enjoy how the characters interacted with each other in this movie, but I mean, there was just some lines that were just like Ellie saying that Ian Malcolm slid into her DMs. And there was another scene where I forget her name. God, I need to go back and see it again. But there was another scene where the pilot, like the Air Force woman, is flying Owen and Claire to Biosyn, and she's talking about Denise at Biosyn, and she says something like, "Deadass Denise did blah 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 blah," and like that doesn't even make sense. I mean, if you're gonna use like hip words, I mean, at least use them right, you know? Like, I don't know, that didn't sit right with me. But other than that, like, there's just a few lines that the characters said that just did not, no. I'm very thankful that this movie doesn't have too much of the crappy MCU humor, which is the direction I thought this movie was going in. I'm so happy it didn't. Before I get into my final thoughts about this movie, I just wanted to say that the Pyro Raptor, like I was talking about the Raptors earlier, the Pyro Raptor, I didn't like anything about the Pyro Raptor. Not one. I think it's one of the ugliest Jurassic World designs, just ever, out of any of the new designs for these animals. The Pyro Raptor is the ugliest. It has the worst looking face. I mean, I like the feathers. We were going in the right direction with that. But it's just such an ugly animal. And just to think that, I mean, it's feathered up, right? It's like, it's supposed to be so close to a bird. And then they have it jump into a hole in like a frozen over lake and swim around as if it was a fish. We got so close to these dinosaurs being represented as ancestors of birds, and then you had a Pyro Raptor swim circles around a guy like a shark. And honestly, the Pyro Raptor didn't have to exist at all. There's only one in the movie. In the sequence it's in, you don't even need one. It makes no... It doesn't... The stakes don't feel high when it's chasing Owen and the other woman. It's just... It's pointless, really. Well, the point is to sell more toys, probably, but as a narrative goes, the dinosaur is pointless. So, despite what it may seem like, I'm actually going to give this movie a 6.5. It's not terrible, and it's definitely better than I thought it was going to be, but it's still not the greatest. I would definitely put it above the other Jurassic World movies. I mean, we'll have a different video about that, I'm sure. But while I liked it, it wasn't great. It was really just okay. 6.5, Jurassic World Dominion. Now, while I had a lot to complain about, I definitely think you should go see it, especially if you are a Jurassic fan. It's definitely worth the experience, because it is really an experience, and I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and that's what I think is most important about the Jurassic World movies, because we're past the point of return with quality. These movies are at this point just like dumb dinosaur B movies that are just loads of fun. And I did have a lot of fun seeing this movie. That's why I went to go see it twice. That's why I'm going to go see it another time. I didn't hate it. I didn't hate this movie like I thought I would. And I'm happy that I didn't hate it. Because despite there being a lot for me to complain about, I'll see it again. I will. it's worth me getting the movie. It's worth having, because despite how much I didn't like, it was a great finale to the series. There could have been a lot done better, but I'm glad that things ended the way they did, if that makes sense. I think that this movie should be the last one. I'm kind of over it at this point. I love these movies. Well, I love some of them with all my heart. But I think it's time that we put this series to rest. And knowing Hollywood, they're not going to do that. But I really hope you can keep the video games going. You can keep the TV shows going. But I don't need another Jurassic. I don't need a Jurassic World 4 in theaters. I really don't. I feel like if you have stories to tell them through other mediums. I mean, these movies are just cash grabs at this point, I think. But despite them being cash grabs, I'm glad they didn't pander to us with nostalgia. It wasn't pandering. It was respectful, and yeah, I've had a lot to say. I've taken a lot of your time, and for that I'm sorry. But I had a lot going on in my mind when it came to this movie. So, I mean, my reviews are just as much opinion dumps as they are actual reviews. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you give a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you thought, as always, and I look forward to seeing you guys again soon. See you later.